Hey everyone. So I've been feeling pretty horrible lately, so I returned to one of my comfort games, Persona 5. And part of your core friend group, one of your confidants, is Yusuke. He's a former student of this famous artist Madarame, and the one goal he's always had in his life is to become a famous artist himself. He is mesmerized by the idea of the metaverse, the place where you go to have your JRPG battles in Persona. He's fascinated with the idea that there's a place where human emotions take some kind of tangible form. And because painting is his medium, he tries to capture it in painting. So he makes this piece he titles Desire. At one point, he invites you to an exhibit, to a museum in Ueno, where his piece is displayed. I found this scene really interesting because he's quite satisfied how it turned out. But it's a big exhibition, lots of other pieces around, and he notices that there is barely anyone viewing his piece. He starts to wonder about the reasons. He's full of newfound confidence at this point, so the first assumption he makes is that it's almost unsettlingly real, that the people in the exhibition might not dare to engage it. But eventually, the first couple comes around and stands in front of a piece and takes it in. And in the most personally relatable way in any video game ever made, because the first reaction of that couple is, what's that supposed to be? What's that supposed to be? They don't get it. They see the title, doesn't really ring any bells, and Yusuke is pretty disappointed. So first they can't connect to the piece, but I think even worse is their second reaction, that they assume it's a student's work. They just assume this was made by someone inexperienced. But Yusuke isn't new to the art world, so he generally knows how to deal with criticism. As long as the people he cares about, the people he wants to belong to, can relate to the piece, he's fine with it. So I think like most people who create art, he wants to be understood, but he doesn't need to be understood by everyone. But then, someone he does care about comes to view the piece. So he's even more on edge now, and this time he confronts him directly. And this experienced guy praises the craftsmanship. He says his brushwork is good, the techniques, it's all there, but it's devoid of meaning. You can read that two ways. Either he's, in the end, just the same as the first patrons who came by. He just doesn't get it. He might look like he'd be part of the group who could appreciate the work, but he isn't. And the second part is, he may be right. Maybe it is lacking something. Maybe there is something wrong with me. So this makes him really start to think. So not only does he have to deal now with this disappointment, but also that his sense might be deceiving him, that he might not know when a piece is actually good. It's one of the hardest things in making art to know when your work is finished. It's more a decision than a detection. I just really found myself in this struggle, in this scene, this imminent despair of suddenly doubting everything you've created, because like I did so often in the past, Yusuke put so much of himself into this piece. He's convinced this must be good because it feels right to me. But now he's confronted that his whole perspective might have been wrong all along. And in this despair, Yusuke wants to give up. He feels like if he can't do this, why do anything? And he says this really relatable thing. He says, without art, what will remain of my being? And that's something I thought many times before. His identity is being a creative, being someone who creates. This is a core question of identity. It's no longer about the piece at all. It's who can he even be? What is left of him if you wipe away his work? So he's down and disappointed, and the main character has to cheer him up a bit. And his way of coping with this personal tragedy is to get back to work. Take the criticism, take it all in, create something new that might then lead to a different outcome. And that's exactly what I've always done. I always try to return to this inexplicable optimism that would then motivate me to say, the next one will be it. The next one will get me there. So like Yusuke, I fail and I return, but I might fail again, and the cycle repeats. At the end of the scene, Yusuke transforms this energy of disappointment into, I'll return, I go home and just create 10 more pieces to make up for this emotional tear. But the question is, what if that doesn't work either? Maybe in his case, the solution is not to try to prove it to these critics, to prove it to an audience even, but to remove yourself from trying to prove anything. But it's much easier to prepare an escape, to return to your workroom and just try again. Well, let's hope that Yusuke makes it out of this. Maybe I will too. See you next time.